What's going on? It's your boy Sermon, the sermonsdomain.com. This summer hasn't been necessarily been the smoothest for the Migos. The Atlanta trio, they were arrested earlier in the year, and Offset's still locked up. And then they dropped their debut album, and it only moved, I believe it was like, 16,000 first week. And less than 2 months later, we're here in September, and they announced that they're dropping a new mixtape called Back to the Bando. And, at the time we didn't know this, but the day that the mixtape dropped, they revealed that they left 300 Entertainment. And, it was an interesting move. It felt like a move that, was going to happen. I keep hearing so many bad things about 300. Just how the operation is ran. It looks like Young Thug, he can't get a release date right now. Their focus is on Fetty Wap. It just seems like it's very disorganized, and I can understand Migos, frustration in leaving and wanting to leave. And it's good that they left, I don't know. They also tease that they have a big announcement coming. I have no idea what that could be. It could be another deal, or they could just be independent, or it could be the second album. They had talked about in an interview a couple months ago that their second album is already done. So maybe they're going to return that quick and see if they could duplicate, the success that they've had on the mixtape circuit into an album form. Because, even though the album didn't sell well, it also wasn't critically acclaimed. It wasn't really their best body of work. So at the same time, I understand why fans didn't like the album compared to the mixtapes. But I gotta say, after listening to Back to the Bando, I think they sound hungry again. Um, they definitely sound like they're ready to go out and do something bigger. And who knows, they could end up doing that. One thing I didn't like, though, I gotta say, I'm like, the first thing on the mixtape you hear about was their flows getting jacked. I think we've heard enough of Migos talk about artists stealing their flow. We hear all the time. They're still talking about Drake taking their Versace flow, and it gets pretty old. I'm not gonna lie though, it was kind of cool the way he flipped it to where it was like artists that they used to look up to are now sounding like them. I thought that was kind of creative. But at the same time, I think after this mixtape, I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to hear it referenced. I think we're all past that point in really caring. I love listening to Migos because they have a lot of popular pop culture references in their stuff. Just a couple that I caught, on a couple listens was Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, my hometown of Seattle, and Topanga. They said they were whipping that Topanga. I thought it was cool. It to me, it connects me to Migos because I'm not from like that environment and stuff. But the fact that they have all these pop culture references, stuff that I connect to. I connect to wrestling. I'm a big Boy Meets World fan. That's how I connect with Migos. Another thing I didn't like was the whole dab thing. Like, it. I don't know. I don't smoke, and even if I did, I feel like the records that they did that reference dabbing a lot are just too repetitive. It's the same throughout the record. I think they had that on their debut album. They had a record about it, and I just don't like the whole dab dab. They just throw the word out there too much. It gets kind of annoying. I personally didn't like it, and I'm excited to see what they do next. Whenever an artist is in a situation that seems bad for them, it's good to see them get out of it, and it's exciting to see what's next. So whatever is next for Migos, I'm excited to see, and I'm always gonna keep listening, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the music. I found, like I said, the references that I like, and that's something that connects me. But yeah, I want to know your thoughts on the whole Migos leaving 300 situation, and of course on the mixtape Back to the Bando. Let me know what your thoughts are on them leaving and the mixtape in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video, follow me on Twitter at Sermons Domain, and as always, I thank you for your time. Appreciate you watching, and until next time, peace.